Hey, good morning and welcome to another edition of the Classic Guitar Rock Daily Update. I'm your host, Jeremy. This is a keep things in perspective episode. I just want to throw that out there. We talk about classic rock for fun, okay? It's all for fun. In the grand scheme of things, is classic rock that important? I mean, it is because we like it. But again, this episode I will call the Keeping It All in Perspective episode. And we need to start with a little sad news. James Kotick, who was the drummer for Kingdom Come back in the 80s, and then eventually he played with the Scorpions. That was kind of his last big gig. He's died at the age of 61. 61 is young. Okay, I'm 56, so when I hear someone passing away at 61, I kind of we're all only here for a limited time, right? Our first perspective point. The Scorpions say on their website, quote, James was a wonderful human being, a great musician and loving family man. He was our brother from another mother and will be truly missed. He not only did he play with Kingdom Come, but he played with the Scorpions. Obviously, he played with Montrose. He played with Macaulay Schenker Group, Dio, Warrant. So he's played with lots of folks. From all indications, a very good drummer. He replaced Herman the Chairman in Scorpions in 1996, and he played with him for, gosh, a number of years, from 96 clear up till 2016. And here's the sad part. James struggled mightily for years and years and years with alcohol addiction. And it got to the point that they had to let him go. He couldn't function in the band anymore. In fact, at one point he was arrested in Dubai on something to do with alcohol. He got treatment. He was not able to perform, and that's always heartbreaking. And we don't know the cause of death, but 61 is pretty young. And so, I guess the lesson we want to learn here: hey, if you struggle with addictions, if you've got things that you're working with, reach out, right? Get help. Don't keep it all in. Don't be silent. That's what kills people, right? So it always kind of breaks our heart a little when we see, especially in the music business, so many artists that have gone too soon because of alcohol and drugs. So number one, don't get started on the crap. That's the first thing. But number two, if you do need help, reach out and get it, because help is available and people want to help and are willing to help. So our condolences to the family of James Kotick. And speak again, more perspective. I don't mean this to be down and gloomy, but this is just the stories that I found for us today. This deals with grief and loss, but I would say it's a positive. It's a positive story. Geddy Lee, he's been out on his My Effin' Life book tour, and it's kind of cool. In each city, he has a different, what do you call it, facilitator, a different guest interviewer that sits down with him. Well, when he was in LA, it was Jack Black, who's a huge Rush fan, huge fan of the classic rock. And one of the things that came out in that conversation was that Geddy revealed that we already have talked about the fact that Paul McCartney has encouraged him and Alex to get back together and get back out on the road since Neil's passing. But Geddy Lee credited Robert Plant and Jimmy Page for helping him and Alex Lifeson get through grief and loss. Not related to Neil personally, but I don't know if you're aware of this. In the mid-90s, in a 1-year period, Neil Peart lost his daughter and his wife. Can you imagine that in the course of a year, you lose your only daughter and your wife? Alex and Geddy thought Rush was over then. This is around 97, 98 timeframe. They thought the band was done then because how was Neil going to come back from that? So they were, and of course they were grieving. They were like a family. So the loss of Neil's daughter and his wife personally affected Geddy and Alex also because they knew these people. They knew their friend and bandmate Neil. And so this was a big loss to them also. But he talks about a time where Page and Plant were touring they were coming through Montreal, and they invited Alex and Geddy to come down and watch them. And at first they're like, man, I don't know if we can do this. We don't, and Plant's basic response was, hey, I've been through loss myself. We all know, of course, that Robert lost a young son. I think his son was 5 years old when his son died. He lost his bandmate, John Bonham. So he's experienced loss. And his advice to them was, I've been through loss. I understand it. I get it. But one of the ways you deal with that is you get back on the horse, right? You get back into the swing of things and you don't let yourself get mired in all the grief. Easier said than done. I get that, right? So he and Alex went down to the show, and it was just a really good experience for them. He says, so I called Al and we went down to the concert, and they couldn't have been nicer to us. Robert was just so charming, and Jimmy was great, and it really lifted us at a moment when we could have used the lifting. Now, here's interesting. Jack Black said to Geddy that story had moved him because he'd never been sure what to do or whether to reach out when his friends were experiencing loss. So in Jack Black's words, that story made me feel like, yeah, it's okay. And in fact, when people are hurting like that, a lot of times they need you the most. And I know that's a common struggle that we have when maybe we aren't experiencing the grief firsthand, but our friends that are, we don't know how we can help them. What can we do? We're afraid to say anything. We feel like, should we say anything? Will it make it worse? But again, in Jack Black's words, when people are hurting like that, a lot of times they need you the most. So again, this is about perspective. Let's change the script just a little bit. Talk about the Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones have announced the release of a new album. This is from their 2002-2003 Licks World Tour. So 20 years ago. This has been over 20 years. The Licks World Tour. It's the Rolling Stones Live at the Wiltern, features the band's November 4, 2002 set from Los Angeles' Wiltern Theater, jam-packed with the hits. And it's filmed in front of a live audience, small audience. The Wiltern's capacity is only 1,800. So this is not an arena show. This is a more intimate setting with the Stones going through their hits. So that's sounds pretty cool. This will be available on DVD and 2 CD Blu-ray and 2 CD double CD and 3 LP formats. Woo! The Rolling Stones Live at the Wiltern arrives 5 months after the release of Hackney Diamonds, which was the group's first album of original material in 18 years. Guys, we aren't going to have the Stones much longer. So we should probably take advantage of this stuff while we can. Check it out. Okay, back to some more perspective. In a new interview with Sweden's SVT, Iron Maiden singer Bruce Dickinson spoke about his upcoming solo album, The Mandrake Project. This will be coming out on March 1st. And really, the interesting part of this conversation was Bruce talks about him dealing with cancer, right? Way back in 2014, he was diagnosed with throat cancer, and he had to undergo the things that you undergo when you have cancer. And this, he was asked what would your advice be to anyone getting ready to start their own battle against cancer? He said, quote, here's the way I dealt with it, and people will deal with it in different ways. I embraced the treatment. So I went along to see the big radiation machine and I said, okay, how does this work then? What does it do? How much are you giving me and where? How are you making a difference between this one and this one and this one? And you can do that. And you can do what with it? Wow, that's really cool. That's amazing. It's insane, the technology. He continued, I would say embrace the treatment and always remember the likelihood. I don't know what your cancer is. I don't know the individual circumstances. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to make any predictions. I can't do anything like that, nor would I, because it's very private. But I have to say that the therapies that people are coming up with now are so on the edge and successful that you really do stand a very good chance, because half of us are going to get cancer. That is true. Half of us will get some form of cancer. And it's not a death sentence anymore, and you can deal with it. And the things they have to do to your body to get rid of it are getting better and better and better as we go down the line. They did some nasty things to my body. I'm lucky I'm completely clear of it and everything. I only really talk about it when I come to do these shows because people want to know. I quite enjoy talking about it because you kind of demystify it a little bit for people. It's a scary thing. Obviously, people still die of cancer, so there's no guarantee that you will be cured. But just about any form of cancer, the key is early detection. And men, I'm saying this to men because most of my audience are men. And men are terrible about going to the doctor. We are. We don't like going to the doctor, so we don't go to the doctor. The worst thing you can do is not go to the doctor, because early detection is the key for almost every type of cancer, right? So this is my message to men. Don't put it off. Go to your doctor and early detection. Get the screening, and the same advice for women, right? Don't avoid the screening. There's certain types of cancer screenings that are uncomfortable. They're awkward. None of us want to do it, but you got to do it. Okay. So you got to do it. And there's an amazing thing. I'm sorry to get so philosophical, but there's an amazing connection between our body's ability to heal and our mental state of mind, right? And there's studies that back this up. People with a positive attitude heal faster. People with a grateful mentality heal faster. I mean, that's fact. That's science, right? But key to all this is early detection. Don't wait. Don't put it off. Okay, guys, I won't talk about dying or cancer anymore, okay, in this episode. But I mean it, okay? Men especially, go to your doctor. Get you got to get screened for prostate cancer. You got to you got to do all that stuff. That's not fun. Women, you got to get screened for breast cancer. You have to do it. All right, shifting gears again. Sammy Hagar shared a picture on his Instagram page along with Nancy Wilson of Heart, updating the fans about his next performance at Alice Cooper's Christmas Pudding fundraiser event. So they performed together. I'm looking for footage on this. Haven't seen it yet. He says, quote, always a pleasure hanging out with my longtime friend, the Queen of Rock, Nancy Wilson, just finishing rehearsing for our duet for Alice Cooper charity event, Christmas Pudding. So I guess this has already happened. So I need to go check that out and find that. More Alice Cooper news. This actually today comes from our clickbait file. In a recent conversation with Ultimate Guitar, Kip Winger opened up about his experience performing with Alice Cooper and the disappointment he felt. I read that headline. I thought, what? Because Alice Cooper is universally heralded as one of the nicest guys in the world, and people love working for him. And I'm like, how could Alice Cooper have disappointed Kip Winger? So for those of you that don't know, first of all, Winger unfortunately came out in the dying days of hair metal, right? So they only had like about a year where they were successful and they released some good hair metal tunes. Let me just say this. Winger was one of the most talented bands of that era. Reb Beach, Rod Rod, is it Rod or Rob Morgenstern, the drummer, formerly of Dixie Dregs. He was the drummer in Winger, and he also played with Alice Cooper. And I think that's where they met and got together, and they started Winger after playing with Alice Cooper. Winger, phenomenally talented band. And they just kind of got lumped in with the Poisons and the Motley Crues and all of that. Winger's on a completely different level. Sorry if that offends anyone. Talent-wise, Winger is here's Poison, here's Motley Crue. Well, here's Motley Crue, here's Poison, right? Here's Rat, here's Winger. And I believe that. They're just a super talented band. And I love all that hair metal. I love it all. But Winger was kind of lumped in, and they were seriously a very talented band. Well, how could Kip be disappointed with Alice Cooper? I was disappointed to see someone was disappointed by Alice Cooper, because he's like the nicest guy in the world. Here's what Kip says. I knew more about Alice than he could remember. I was a huge Alice Cooper fan, a huge Dennis Dunway bass playing fan. Dunway was Alice's bass player. I mean, my biggest influences were Mel Shocker from Grand Funk, Dennis Dunway, and Dale Peterson of James Gang. So he loved these classic 70s bass players. And so I knew all that Alice material. I came up, met Kane Roberts, who was Alice Cooper's guitarist back in the 80s. Kane actually suggested that I should mention to Alice that I would be available to tour. And I was lucky enough to get the call. And I'm thinking, oh no, there's going to be some story about Alice being a jerk. Here's where he was disappointed. Ironically, they misspelled my name on that record. It's Kip Ringer. They spelled it Winger. It was amazingly disappointed to be on the Alice Cooper record with my name spelled wrong. But funny. Anyway, hugely influential on me. I learned a lot from Alice. I owe Alice a lot. A great person to learn from when you're just a kid getting into it back then. Especially, this was like pre-internet. So very lucky to be in the right place at the right time, end quote. So he wasn't disappointed with Alice. Clickbait, right? They were reeling me in. I thought there's finally going to be a negative story about Alice Cooper. Wrong. Alice had nothing to do with it. Someone spelled his name wrong on the album. Whew, dodge that bullet. Hey, two big things happened on this date. One is bad, one is good. It was on this date 1 year ago that we lost the great Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck passed away 1 year ago today. And if you've never gone down the Jeff Beck rabbit hole, stop what you're doing. Okay, call your boss, say, hey, I can't work for the next 2 hours because I got to go on YouTube and watch Jeff Beck videos. Phenomenal. When you dig into Jeff Beck, you realize that so many of our favorite guitar players borrowed so much from Jeff Beck. And he marched to his own drum. That's why he never really became a household name, and had the huge commercial success that other guitarists did. He had to feel it. You know, he was famously mercurial, sometimes difficult to work with, because he would decide, I don't want to do this. You know, middle of a tour, I'm done. I don't want to do this. Whatever. That's just kind of the way he was, but just a phenomenal guitar player. Doesn't play with a pick. He used to, but for the last 30, 40 years, he doesn't use a pick. Everything is his fingers and the things he does, and manipulates his volume knob and his whammy bar. He just is from another planet. Unbelievable just how influential he was. And you hear these things that are kind of hard rock guitar staples, and a lot of us don't realize how much of that was borrowed from the great Jeff Beck. Blow by Blow and Wired, even Guitar Shop that came out in 1989. Those are my three favorite Jeff Beck albums: Blow by Blow, Wired, and Guitar Shop. They're phenomenal. They're textbooks in pulling amazing sounds out of your guitar, and just a phenomenal player and such a huge loss. Everyone was shocked because he seemed to be in good health and everything was going great. And he died a year ago today. Again, we're only here for a limited time. Got to make the most of it. And also on this day, this could be my favorite guitar player. Could be. Definitely in my top 3. This is Michael Schenker's birthday. Michael Schenker, the often misunderstood and apparently slightly crazy guitar player, got his start with the Scorpions, then UFO, then Michael Schenker Group. The guy is still putting out excellent music. We could do a whole episode just on Michael Schenker. Go listen to the Assault Attack album today. Another, you've already told your boss you're not going to work for the next 3 hours. Listen to the Assault Attack album from the Michael Schenker Group, and listen to Strangers in the Night, the live UFO album. For my money, the greatest live rock album ever made. Listen to those 2 albums. You really owe it to yourself. I think you owe it to your country to listen to those 2 albums today. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate you. Thank you for following. Again, you can always subscribe on X. It's only $1 a month. It's only $1 a month, and that's how we will achieve world domination, is by you subscribing. Thank you so much. We do it all again tomorrow. Live long and prosper.